Good evening, everyone. We continue our study in the book of Isaiah from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 23. It begins this way. Now, remember, each chapter that we are progressing, it is not in chronological order. It is a series of prophecies, one after another, and it is not to say that one will happen before the other, but it is a series of independent prophecies of various nations, largely to do with Israel. Now, what we have here is that it begins this way: the burden against Tyre. So let me just explain this again. Every time you see the word burden, masa, it literally means prophecy. If you like, a harsh prophecy. The word Tyre is Sur. This is the Hebrew name. And this is a city and a port. Now, I need to actually explain a number of things before we go on because it has to do with Tyre. Now, Tyre or Sur was a friend of David, and they are located in the land of Lebanon, and it's way up in north, right? Way up north, on the border, on the coast, and that was where they took all the cypress and juniper wood and shipped it down to Joppa, which is a port, and they transported it to Jerusalem. And it was a friend. Tyre was a friend. And during the time of David, he gave them all that is needed to build the temple. And at the time of Solomon, the king of Tyre also gave wood for the palace of Solomon. Now, with all these constructions done, eventually they turned against Israel and, of course, Judah. And so today we are covering a prophecy or a harsh prophecy against Tyre or Sur. Now, let me just give you a background. I'm going to draw a little map so that you understand. And so with this map, I just wanted us to realize that this is the Great Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. All right. And if this was Haifa, which at that time never existed, Haifa is a modern city, we have here Joppa, the place where Jonah left. And these are all city ports. Now, what is important for us to realize is somewhere here we have the Sea of Galilee, River Jordan goes down, and this would be the Dead Sea. And further up would be a source of the Jordan. And we would have right here Tyre. And then slightly above would be Sidon. This entire area here that we can see, this would be the area of the Phoenicians. They are all coastal people. And so with this, we should be able to appreciate that there will be trade coming in. And then we have here Cyprus or Kittim, right? Kittim, which is today's Cyprus. And then we have Hittite. which would be on the coastal side of what we now know as Turkey. Haifa is a port, but Haifa does not exist at that point in time, but Joppa does. Now, what I want to point out to you in today's chapter, we have a place called Tarshish. And I don't know exactly where it is. It is located somewhere further out towards the eastern part of the Mediterranean, possibly some islands where there are merchant trades. So what we do know now is that this is Hittite, this is Kittim, this is Joppa, and this is Tyre, and then we have Sidon or Sidon. So let's continue. So whale, you ships of Tarshish. Now remember, Tarshish is somewhere out there towards the west side of the Great Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. Now exactly where we don't really know. And there's a lot of guesswork. So it's somewhere on the west, further out, where they are able to connect to the western part of the European continent. And the story is as you ships of Tarshish, for it is laid waste. What do you mean laid waste? Who is laid waste? Tyre. This is the entire story. It's against Tyre. The ships of Tarshish, when it comes, too bad. It is laid in waste. Now, the idea of laid in waste literally means to be devastated. That's why it's called a harsh prophecy, and it's regarding Nebuchadnezzar. And when it comes down, he does destroy them, right? So this is the prophecy about Nebuchadnezzar further down the lifetime of Isaiah, that it is so devastated that there will be no house, no harbor from the land of Kittim. This is Kittim. It is revealed to them. So the people here in Kittim learns about the destruction of Tyre. And Tyre will be totally devastated. And that's why it's called a harsh prophecy. Be still, you inhabitants of the coastland, you merchants of Sidon. Now, remember, Sidon is slightly north in the land of Lebanon as well, Lebanon, right? Sidon. These are all trading posts. And so merchants of Sidon is to be quiet. The idea of quiet here is be still, is to wait or pretend, well, I guess pretend to die, so that you are still, you are, well, I guess silent. Don't say anything lest Nebuchadnezzar will come and destroy you. So you inhabitants of the coastland. Now the idea of coastland would be the shore region. So we are talking very much about this region here, the coastland. All right. Whom those who cross the sea have filled. What sea are we talking about? The Great Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. And people come all over to trade. And so what we do know is they come from Kittim, they come from Tarshish. And remember, Jonah was trying to run far away to Tarshish. And that's from Joppa. but basically telling us that these are the major ports of the day. And on great waters, the grain of Shihor. Now, the idea of Shihor, this is understood as the Nile, which means that these would be coming from Egypt, the grains from the Nile River. The harvest of the river is her revenue, and she is a marketplace for the nations. Understand that Egypt for a long time is the, I guess you can call it the cradle of bread. Whenever there is a famine, Egypt would be okay. Egypt will have lots of grain. And so people would travel to Egypt, and Egypt is a very bountiful place because of the Nile. And so they would trade in these locations right here in Tyre, in Joppa, and it will bring the trade in here from Egypt. In verse 4, it says, "Be ashamed, O Sidon, for the sea has spoken." These are all very poetic language because Sidon, here, Tyre, Joppa, they're all ports. And so the description would always be referencing the sea. The strength of the sea saying, "I do not labor nor brought forth her children, neither do I rear young men nor bring up virgins." Basically saying that the sea is not responsible for the continuity of any of the ports. When the report reaches Egypt, they will also be in agony at the report of Tyre, which means that at a time where the news of Tyre's destruction reaches to Egypt by the traders, they will be very scared. Why? Because Nebuchadnezzar is coming down. The rule of Babylon is destroying everything in his path. It says, "Cross over to Tarshish." Now, again, Tarshish is somewhere further to the west, right? Very far west. But how far, I really don't know. But it's somewhere towards the west of the Mediterranean Sea. Wail, go and cry, you inhabitants of the coastland, because all of them actually trade with Tyre. Is this your joyous city where you go there to celebrate? Whose antiquity is from ancient days, meaning Tyre has been around for a long, long time. Whose feet carried her far off to dwell? Who has taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are the honorable of the earth? The great and mighty men who are trading all come to Tyre. Tyre is a celebration to all traders. The Lord of hosts, Jehovah Tsevaot. Now it says here, Jehovah Tsevaot has purposed it. Now, this idea of purpose really gives us an idea, has resolved, have decided that this is what's going to happen to Tyre. To bring dishonor, the pride of all glory, to bring into contempt all the honorable of the earth. That all this is happening in Tyre, God is going to put an end to it. Verse 10, "Overflow through your land like the river, O daughter of Tarshish." There is no more strength in verse 10. Now, understand this. The Nile River always overflows the banks. When the river becomes swollen from the upper river, it always flows towards the Nile mouth, which ends in the Mediterranean Sea. But the river of Nile will overflow its banks because there will be occasional rain that comes down from the highlands inland, and it will flow through Egypt and overflow the banks. When it overflow the banks, then there is a lot of flooding in that area. It says here, overflow through your land like the river, and when it comes over, everybody would be at a loss. O daughter of Tarshish, understand, in Tarshish there is no more strength. Now, this idea of strength in verse 10 literally says there is nothing you can do to stop this from happening in Tyre. God stretched out his hand over the sea. He shook the kingdoms. The Lord has given a commandment against Canaan to destroy its strongholds. And God said, you will rejoice no more. And you oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon, rise up and cross over to Kittim. There also you have no rest. Now, what does that mean? See, from verse 11 and 12, we're talking about the resolve of God to destroy Tyre. At the same time, in more poetic language, the prophecy says that he has caused the sea to be disturbed, to shake the kingdoms of Kittim. Now, understand this. Kittim was a very powerful kingdom. So is Tyre. So is Sidon. And so is the Hittite. And so is Egypt. These are all kingdoms that surround the Mediterranean Sea. And so God stretched his hand over the sea. He shook all these kingdoms of Hittite, Kittim, Sidon, Tyre, Egypt, and of course Israel. The Lord Jehovah has given a commandment against Canaan. Now understand this, Canaan is here. Right? This is Canaan. All of this is Canaan. He says, you will rejoice no more. All the strongholds of Canaan will be destroyed. So when Nebuchadnezzar comes down, everyone is destroyed, including Judah. He said, you will rejoice no more, you oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon, which means that it is also a prophecy regarding Sidon that she will be no more. Arise, cross over to Cyprus. What does that mean? Means move, right? Move over from Sidon to Cyprus. But then again, God says, there you also have no rest. Now, no rest means you can't settle down there. You cannot have any peace and quiet. Because when they arrive in Kittim, they will also be harassed by the Hittites. Verse 13 says, behold, look, the land of the Chaldeans. Now, this is an important aspect to look at. The land of the Chaldees is where Babylon is. The land of Ashur, by the way, that would be the Assyrians. So Chaldeans are the Babylonians. So when Daniel was taken to Babylon, he learned the Chaldean language. This people was not. Means that Babylon was never a huge kingdom, but they will be. Assyria, this is Ashur, was founded for wild beasts of the desert. They set up its towers, they raised up its palaces, and brought it to ruin. And so Assyria will also be destroyed. It says, howl, wail, cause yourself to cry out, you ships of Tarshish, for your strength is laid waste. Your strength is destroyed, devastated. It says here, verse 15, now it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre will be forgotten, but it's only forgotten for 70 years, according to the days of one king. It's as if David was talking about his life, 70. And so Tyre would be devastated for 70 years. At the end of the 70 years, it will happen to Tyre as in the song of the harlot. What does that mean? It means that Tyre will rise up and please her suitors, which means that Tyre is going to open shop and welcome everyone to trade with her. So take a harp, go about the city. This is the city of Tyre, you forgotten harlot. Make sweet melodies, sing many songs that you may be remembered. Now, this in itself is very much to help us understand that Tyre, although has a harsh prophecy, will be destroyed, but will come back and be remembered after 70 years. And when the 70 years is done, she is to start her singing again. As a forgotten harlot, she is to make merry so that everyone around the region of the Great Sea will come and be her suitor again, that she may be remembered. So Tyre will come back. And that's a prophecy. That's a prophecy. And it shall be at the end of the 70 years that the Lord will deal with Tyre. She will return to her hire and commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world on the face of the earth. Meaning, after 70 years, and after 70 years would be after Babylon's reign is over. So think of it this way. When Nebuchadnezzar comes, God tells Israel or Judah, after 70 years, they will have to come back and rebuild the city and the temple. And so we're talking about by the end of the kingdom of Judah and at the king of the Medo-Persia, when King Cyrus in Ezra chapter 1 allows the Jews to come home, that will also be the time when Tyre will return and revive the city again, because Nebuchadnezzar will no longer be disturbing them. So it says here, her grain and her pay will be set apart for the Lord. It seems that after the 70 years, when the Jews come back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple and the city, that Tyre will help finance part of the work. Set it apart for the Lord. It will not be treasured nor laid up, for her gain will be for those who dwell before the Lord, to eat sufficiently and for fine clothing. Which tells us when they are revived in their 70 years, how will the Jews who come back find money? And that wealth, it seems from chapter 23 of Isaiah, is a prophecy that Tyre will revive herself again, and her wealth will be contributing to the Jews, the 40,000 Jews who came back to Jerusalem to rebuild the city and the temple. And so Tyre has a purpose at the end of 70 years. So this chapter 23 really gives us a very specific view of how God is looking at Tyre to be destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, to be revived after the Babylon kingdom is dispersed by Medo-Persia, and the wealth is to be set aside for the construction of the temple, And with this, we come to the end of our session today.